Hey guys, welcome back. So this will probably be a shorter video. Just going to show you what we got done today. Probably about knockoff. So check this out. We got our hard pipes done. I believe they're actually finished. Yesterday we had these all taped up. We built all the pieces. But today, these are welded together, as we can see. Actually turned out pretty good. We're burning through a lot of argon, but yeah, that larger cup sure helps the weld quality. So you can see we showed these last time. So anyway, these are all welded. We did make a couple additions. So we talked about this heat exchanger yesterday. This is for our transmission. So the brass fittings have coolant from the engine circulating through them. So like if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see we put a half-inch, just a piece of half-inch tubing welded on. Those actually turned out nice. So this one right here is just going to shoot over to that. Now in between there, we're going to have this. This is a valve. Looks like this. It's electronically controlled half-inch ball valve. That's going to go between those two lines. So this will be high pressure cold water, goes through the ball valve into this fitting. Cold water goes through the heat exchanger, hot water comes out of the heat exchanger and goes right here. So you'll see we also threw a half-inch pipe right onto this main pipe that's our return. So that's all nice. Should make the routing pretty efficient, which is what we're going for. Now let's switch gears. So, okay, let me mention this before we switch gears. The cooling system is basically done. Basically, well, the only thing left as far as I know is silicone and hose clamps. All the design, the mounts, the brackets, all that stuff's done. I suppose the only exception is the fan shroud. However, the fan shroud was designed, modeled in CAD, ordered to be laser cut, and I got a tracking number with it on the way. Once it gets here, I don't know, there's maybe 2 or 3 hours work tops. We got to drill the holes to bolt the fan. To bolt to the radiator, those holes are already drilled. And then a little bit of extra metal work to kind of seal it to the radiator. And that's basically, I think that's it for the radiator shroud. So cooling system's damn near done. We're at like 97% complete. So that's looking good. Let's talk about the fuel system. We've made a couple small changes in how we're going to route stuff. I think it's going to be better. So let me show you. So these are our fuel filters. They're in a bag just to keep them clean. That's our 100 micron. This other one back here, that's our 10 micron. So these are like super high flow. They got 10 AN fittings. Actually, this one's got 12 AN. This one has 10 AN. Here's the thing. So for the fuel system, we've got our fuel cell up front. There's a 12 AN coming out of the bottom of the tank, and it's got to get over to the inlet of the pump. So obviously, inlet's on the bottom, but we need that 100 micron fuel filter in line between the tank and the pump. That way no big chunks of debris get into our pump. That would be bad. So what I think we're going to do, if we look at this like kind of aerially, is this hose is going to come out of the tank. It's going to kind of loop around and loop over to the tank. So we'll probably use 2 hoses, and we'll just put the fuel filter like in line. And then there'll be a second hose that reaches over to the inlet of the pump. Okay, there's actually some room down there, so I don't see that being a big deal. Here's what we were going to do. We were going to come out of the pump and go to the rail, which makes perfect sense if I could get a view that really showed it, because I have a fuel fitting for the rail right here. So it's basically a straight shot, but there's a problem. If we try to do that, we really need the fuel filter to be between the pump and the injectors. We could put the filter after the injectors and it would still clean the fuel, but then of course any debris that got past the 100 micron could potentially get to our injectors before being filtered to 10 micron. So it makes sense to have the fuel filter, the 10 micron, right after the pump. But the problem is, you know, look at this, I can barely get my finger in here. There's some space in here, not a lot. We've got a coolant pipe right there. This is not a lot of height. Like if I move my hand here, you can see there just isn't a lot of room. So we're going to change the routing. What we're going to do, we're going to put our fitting here. We're going to have a hose come off and go backwards instead. This area where I'm moving my hand, there's a oil filter that we do need to be able to access like this, but we could go below that and let our fuel filter reside in this area. And that's what I think we're going to do. We're going to come off here, have a short hose, have a fuel filter, and then come off the filter and do this, come up and catch this. So it'll be 2 more hoses. That kind of sucks, but it seems unavoidable. The alternative is almost worse. Like say you try to rigid mount a filter, you know, that could vibrate and crack. That's not a good idea. So the plan will be Fuel comes out of the pump, goes through the filter, loops up and goes into the fuel rail from the rear. So fuel will go across the rail, and then when we come out of here, we just got to get a 90-degree hose end and make a turn. And if you can see where my finger is now, that is going to basically come like this, and it's got to make a turn, and it goes to this. So we'll probably require a 90-degree hose end here, and likely a 90-degree hose end as well. These will have to be clocked, but that'll be the next loop from the filter, from the rail to the regulator. Also, you can note our regulator. We got this installed just a few minutes ago. Pretty simple. Just uses our threaded inserts and drilled, tapped, and bolted that to the frame. But I like where this is. It's in a fairly good location because it's kind of out of the way. There's still enough room here to get in here and adjust the fuel pressure if required. It's visible because this is a good looking part. I thought about hiding it, but didn't really want to do that. And anyway, fuel goes in here, fuel comes out right here. So this one is a little tricky because this has to get over to the fuel cell. This one I'm not 100% sure, but we're probably going to do some type of 90-degree fitting and try to go this way, which isn't going to be as elegant as I would like. We can go through here, but I really want to keep the fuel stuff on this side of the frame instead of this side, because if you ever get in a wreck, it's just not safe. Like, one idea I had was running the fuel line through there, but that just sounds like an accident waiting to happen. So, not going to do that. So, this line will probably get some type of hose, and we got to get it going that way. So we'll probably have to play with that to see what's going to work. That's the only one that's a little short, so it's a bit of a pain because there's just a lot of stuff here. But we looked at other locations, and if you try to put it somewhere else, you run into an issue where basically, like, say I put it back here, well, now my fuel lines end up being like excessively long and they're running back and forth. And I've done that before. I'm not a huge fan of that. So don't want to do that. Don't want it bolted to the engine. I've actually done that before. I built brackets attached to the motor. That's just not a good idea because motors vibrate, and this has a valve which is trying to regulate fuel pressure, so I don't like that at all. So we decided on this location vertically. If you look at it this way, it kind of fits perfect. So I think that's going to be good. Yeah, and I guess the last thing worth mentioning, here's our vacuum port, which that's got to go to the intake manifold, so that's not too bad. Fairly short run. So overall, pretty happy with this. We've got, I think we have all the only thing is the filters are not mounted, but frankly, after thinking about it, I've decided I think the filters are just going to float on the fuel lines. I've seen that on a lot of race cars, and I think we're just going to do that. I think the lines can be supported if required, but that's 2 less brackets, so it saves a little weight. So I think we're just going to do it that way. So don't need brackets for the fuel filters. Obviously the pump's on, now the regulator's on, fuel cell's done. So I believe all the major components for the fuel system are in place. Only thing of note that we are going to add that I didn't detail yet, here it is. Here's my old rate. Oh, this is funny. I ought to show us side by side just as a LOL. Here's the old regulator. Let's just set that in the picture next to the new one. Kind of hilarious. Yeah, it's a bit bigger, a little bit higher flowing. So here's our old one. We had a gauge, which, I don't know, I like gauges. Maybe we'll keep it. But I definitely want the sensor, because you can only see a gauge when the hood's up. But the sensor, I can data log this all the time. So we got to figure out how to hook the sensor up. Not sure yet. Maybe we can use one of these. These are -8 orb O-ring boss. Maybe I can buy an adapter or something and just screw the, adapter into the regulator and then hook the sensor up. I'll have to see. I know they make inline adapters, but then that requires hoses and nonsense that I really don't want to deal with. Trying to minimize how many connections and leak points there are within the system. Believe it or not, I am. So we do got to work that detail out, and then I suppose on the cooling system, we were also planning to do pressure on that as well. So I have to look. I just thought of this. I guess I could weld a boss, but these are attached to the motor. These are going to vibrate, and if you hook a sensor to that, the sensor is going to vibrate. But I want to measure coolant pressure somewhere, so I got to think about where to put that. But yeah, we'll see. One idea I just had was to get like either manufacture or purchase an inline like hose barb that has an NPT fitting, say for example here or on this side or something, and just put the pressure sensor in line with something like that. So we'll look into that. Hell, maybe we could integrate it into this or something. I don't know. But I do want coolant pressure just to check for leaks, and fuel pressure, oil pressure, all that stuff. So anyway, that's kind of wrapping this one up. But man, it's sure starting to look like a good car, like it's actually going to run. A lot of the major components are now in the engine bay. One of the next things we're going to do, perhaps in the next video, I haven't done it yet, is ignition coils. And man, I've had so many ideas of what I was going to do and not do. But there's this huge empty spot over here. And I've thought, when you design stuff, you try to future-proof it. And I don't anticipate really anything going over there in the future. So what I'm considering is to build a bracket, probably have it laser cut, and just have all the coils kind of like in this area. And I can imagine, if we zoom out a little, say your coils are here, and your spark plug wires would just go back, turn, and go right here to the valve cover. So it would look fairly presentable in that regard. And if you look at it, the distance from the turbo, this is about as far away from the turbo as we can get. So heat-wise, that's nice. And with them on the firewall way in the back like that, it's just kind of away from heat in general. And if you're working on the motor and, you know, these spark plug wires, like if you try to come off and go this way, there's a turbo. If you come forward, there's a timing belt and spinning bits. I don't want to be reaching my hand anywhere near this when it's running or not running. I don't know, sounds like a bad idea. If you go this way, you could go over the intake manifold. That would look bad, but it would probably work. But I might change the intake manifold one day, and so anything I build custom that like attaches to it would have to be redone, or likely redone, if I were to change the intake. So I don't like that, so which leaves you the last option of going back, which is how it was from the factory. And I think that's going to be the way we do it. We have long considered putting the coils actually in the cab of the vehicle. We have not ruled that out, because they could go in this area right here. This whole area is open, there's really not much there. Downside is, you got to run the spark plug wires through the firewall, for better or worse. On the Pro, the weight potentially could be lower. Like if I put them over here, this height, even if I put them down here, if I was to put them on like the floor of this, they'd be a touch lower. That's arguably better. And if I get them right up against the wall there, the distance could be shorter than if I put them over here. It's not that big a difference, but it's a little bit. But I don't know aesthetically. Maybe if you're in the driver's seat, it looks better because you can see your coils. But from popping the engine, I think it would look better to have the coils over here. So I think we're going to do that. The main reason for putting them inside was temperature, and at this point, if I put them way over here, I don't see that being a big deal. This car is going to have pretty good cooling. I believe it will. So I don't think they're going to get that hot. Anyway, I guess my short video turned out to not be short, but that's the update for today. And like I said, we're going to probably design and get a coil bracket ordered. We might do that later tonight. But yeah, this thing's coming together. Our plan is to still get this to the racetrack this year. Sounds horrible to say year, but we took this car, I think in 2021, if I remember right. We drove it up here, and it's been here for 2 years. So yeah, a lot of work and not much driving. But look how close this is to running. I mean, it's actually pretty close. We're starting to check all these little mechanical things one at a time are getting checked off, and we're getting pretty close to wiring the car. And we had another few orders of electrical parts come in, so I figured we were at 90% of everything we needed before I placed that order. At this point, I'd say I'm 98% of having everything I need to wire the car, which means there's really no reason to wait. We really just, like for example, coils, you know, they need to mechanically be bolted somewhere so that I know where to run the wires to and can get them the correct length. But we're almost done in that regard. We got to do our coil brackets. We got to throw a few sensors, which most of the sensors bolt right up, except for things like fuel pressure and coolant pressure. We got to knock those out. But that's what I'm saying. We're pretty close on getting all of our sensors put in, and components. There's a little bit to do, but we ordered some brackets to do our switches, our displays, our gauges. So we gotta get those built up and populated, and I guess brackets to install them. So I guess there's a little mechanical work there, but we're getting awful close to time to start running wires. So this thing should be running in the near future, and I cannot wait. I think it's gonna sound good, it's gonna look pretty good, and she should be quick. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and until next time, y'all take it easy.